Okay, slow to thaw crickets, that's the mission. We got a full couple months here to get to spring. We'll thaw out. Only those oldest and the most decrepit crickets won't make it through this deep freeze we're going through. So that's our mission for the future. Let's see if we can pull ourselves up. We got months now to prepare to start doing something that needs to be done to extricate ourselves from the oppression that we live under. For, again, as much as I would rather see it another way, it's not that way. I don't know what else to declare about what our condition is. The interesting part is the tools are around and available easily for us to use in order to do that extrication. I think the whole game is partly us doing that. The experiment ends up being, do we allow the experiment to continue, or do we bring the inducement that was offered of being free, a people that are sovereign, the people themselves, not the people, but each man and woman being sovereign. The experiment was, can we do it one more time and keep people from fulfilling themselves? And the experiment, I think, is going down the tubes, but we still have the ability to extricate ourselves if we will. Will is an interesting problem. Will. We have to intend and do. And that's where it gets beyond knowledge and gets beyond anything else we might have as an opinion. And the battlefield is vast, but the battlefield is not insurmountable and then brought under the peace. And I've been suggesting that the peace is the law, the actual law, not as it's adulterated. Thou shalt not commit adultery. So they get us to think in only one way about that, and we don't really realize maybe these things are generalities. For those of you on podcast or pastcast, this should be BTW RLM 197. And as I think about that, thank you all y'all that are promoting the broadcast or any of the broadcasts on RLM or UCY, where you've placed them in your feeds or placed them on your pages that you have available on the social medias. That's the only way I can think to get this out. And I don't know if I really apologize. There's just so much to do. I just can't handle it all myself, but I've never have been a promoter. I know it's important. I know there's a commercial and marketable thing about our mindsets, but there's something about, I felt uncomfortable even asking you to put a like on the broadcast pages if you would. It's not about, to me, it's not about promoting. I figured, I hoped we would have more people, really engaging to promote those things that have value. I think I may sit in an odd place. I think I'm speaking in areas that are just so foreign to most people, and they think that they're foreign, and they maintain them as a foreignness that maybe it's not appreciated as much as it needs to be, that it doesn't get promoted. But those of you that are promoting the broadcast and putting them anywhere, mentioning them anywhere, thank you very much. And certainly the networks that carry the broadcast, I appreciate that. Again, I don't want to self-analyze what I do. I just know that it's a different thing, but it is a valuable thing. And here's why it's not a self-assessment more than when I tell you we apply what I'm talking about in places that do cause these changes, which we also don't promote for lots of reasons. I guess that's where I put the value. We are making changes when we're applying what I'm telling you, and I'm asking you all to do that. You can't look out in the world and see that it's okay. We can't look out in the world and know that anybody that we believe is out there to help us does when we look at it, who are in the government at this point. And I make a distinction. I really do believe the government's merely a framework within which we were to establish our peace and our order. And that was based on this thing we call law, not legal, but law, the foundations of our nations. And it's in the land, and for reasons. And I, again, don't have all that's in my mind. When I make these words to you folks, I can't even tell you, well, I can tell you, but I don't know if you can conceive. I got things flashing in my mind of all the conceptual things that I should be telling you, or not should, but that come to, that I could tell you, that I understand also to tell you is really to defeat you, and for two reasons. One is you don't Well, three reasons. One, you have no intention if you let me do it for you, to do it yourself. Then number two is you don't do that, and you don't make that investment. Number three is you don't get the reward from your intended action. In other words, that black and white that explains it to you. As I told somebody in a seated decision, in every intention to help them, I said, I want you to read the black and white so you know the words, and I want you to be able to have an objective foundation from which you decide, not from opinion, not from politics. I want you to be able to be empowered by those words that are there that will allow you to separate the wheat from the chaff, you can listen to anybody that comes to you, and you can separate whether or not they're sending you, puffing smoke in your face, or whether or not they're telling you the rightness. And if they're telling you what's right, you listen. If they're telling you what's wrong, you tell them what the right is. I want you to have the foundation to make the proper decisions. See, it's not even me wanting to impart what I know as an opinion or as what I would like to see. And this is what I think we are partly needing to do. We don't go in and tell everybody what we know. We tell people what they need to know about what we know that will get them to the better place. And we have to make that an honest determination. But at every point we've got noise, what I call noise. It's why I don't promote. It's why we have, as a Jefferson Mining District, don't really promote. We wait and wait and wait. We've decided to wait until only time something comes out is when we have the proof, absolutely the proof, beyond opinion. And part of the reason is it should be self-evident. There's no opinion that can be had around the facts that are in place. Now, you can create an opinion, but that's just a story or a lie. You're either telling yourself stories, you're telling other stories, or you're a divisive deceiver. Some people have found the Jefferson Mining District, there was a big update, at least in the first part of the pages, of a whole lot of new information of what's coming down, what miners and property owners, and we call, as I say, we'll see the beneficiaries of land disposal. There's information on the Jefferson Mining District website which lay out very serious problems, in particular for miners, but also for ranchers and water appropriators, and explaining this concerted effort, collusion of people in this country that will defeat other people. And how the website shows just very basic information. Not going too deep there to explain what are a couple of the things that are going on that people, in particular the miners, need to pay attention to. That there's nobody that isn't involved with Jefferson Mining District that can speak about that information. They have no clue. They have no knowledge. They have no applicable knowledge. Anybody who's speaking about what Jefferson Mining District is or can be, or what it's doing or what it's not doing, or how ineffectual it is, or how big it is and it can't do what it does, don't know. And when they say that, they don't know. And I'm saying this in particular because there's been information coming out after we did the update that the noise starts trying to divide the miners. I tell you, the microcosm of the miner is the macrocosm we know as America. It's actually all people. And I've been here behind the woodshed trying to show you how you separate the wheat from the chaff in that regard. You have to be careful and cognizant of the signal-to-noise ratio, if I can put it in more electronic terms, partly because the Silent Weapons of Quiet War is subject matter based through a dry discussion of electronics and how the society is a circuit, and they'll give a place for you to plug yourself in, and I tell you, you will. We do that all the time. And so I'm trying to show behind the woodshed that that's there. It's there, but how to avoid it, and then what to do to try and stop it. And I say try only because there's just not enough of us. We would stop it if there was enough. So so there's information about Jefferson Mining District that the people that are not involved right now, and if they haven't been involved for a few years, they have no knowledge. You can look at them as divisive noise, the signal-to-noise ratio. That every time we bring up updates, it's a whole bunch of people that start talking out about what we're doing. And they don't have a clue. And they sound like they do. And this is the deception. This is what I'm trying to explain to you when I give you these so-called news, that whether you want to call it alt-right media, mainstream media, or whatever. It's just, to me, it's all a bunch of noise. But for you, it's notice of what's up. It's not good or bad. It's what is, what could be, and our job is to filter through it so that we become effective and we target the right things. In other words, in a battlefield, I'm told, companies. I always say companies, and I mean governments. See, it's not much different, is it? They will put, in war, they will put decoys, inflatable decoys that are made up to look like real installations and hardware, so to fool the enemy either on numbers or placement. And this is what this noise does. It gives you a lot of targeting things to think about that keep you keep you confused. This is one of the main problems that we have, and for some reason, one of our human frailties is really susceptible to this problem. And so, getting back, there's an update on JeffersonMiningDistrict.com. Very serious things. If you look at, even if you're not involved in mining, if you go and see what we're talking about, I guess it's in the second set of tables, rather than near the top of the page, underneath the bag of law links. And again, thank you for those that did participate in the petition. That has been stopped. But look at the second set of tables, talking about how people are approaching people with rights and property, and trying to get them to negate those rights in preference to a regulatory authority by permit, by application to permit. And then we look at that permit and we see within it there are vast violations. If you know what you're looking at, that there's nobody that can. I haven't heard of anybody that knows to speak to this to find it. That we find people speaking against what's going on and what we do. There's another comment that seems to be coming around that seems to be a noise in the forums that are for the miners. Well, Jefferson Mining District is too big. It can't be that big. We don't see how it can be that big. Well, that's just a lack of knowledge. That's a lack of understanding of the purpose, and that's the lack of vision, if I can put it that way. It's a lack of awareness of what mining districts are about. Those people should not be listened to. It's the same thing that people will come and tell you what your limitations are, whether they tell you as a direct limitation or they try to get you to do something in action that's a limitation. Again, lots of deception can come up. You really, really have to focus on what that's why I tell you have to find a mission. You have to find a purpose, and you have to intend to solve that purpose. That purpose would be to stop oppression. You've got to refine and define yourself very narrowly. I don't like that, but that's what it takes. I don't even want to be talking to you about this stuff. I'd rather talk about kumbaya. I'd rather do all that. It's a whole lot more fun, but in the right way. So I come here, there's a duality in me. I don't even want to talk about it, but I know I have to. And this is the crisis that we're under. So, just to point it out for the miners, the district is large. I've already explained all this. As a matter of fact, I've done so much information on all this. It's already on the internet in places. I don't really keep up with it, but I've explained why the district can be so large. And I'm speaking specifically to the miners now, or those that are the beneficiaries of these land disposal laws, actually, because we speak to all of that. That we have a power as the people in the land. And we have the power to throw off and denounce the authority that called state that comes against it. And there's such a chasm in that authority that it can't be bridged. And yet the government attempts to. And it does so by its bar association construction. It does so by the agencies that rely on the bar association advice. It relies on the fiscal and monetary condition. And remember, in our lawsuit in 2013, what triggered the lawsuit was not the moratorium against the miners. That became so far down the track after I saw the causative factor that we opted immediately to move on the other problem, which was that they admitted, the state, these law universities just shooting like shotguns, shooting legislation out, completely contrary to the Republican form of representative government, which is really the government sitting to protect you as it's supposed to with to keep the actual peace, not the one they want to foist on you from you being tied up and bound and gagged by imposition of mere policy, which you'll find that your legislatures only do now. They only do mere policy. They don't really make law. That's why I say you've got to make a distinction between what's happening today and what has happened in the past. That there's no way that a bridge can be made to your substantive rights, let alone the procedurals. They can't use the procedurals to defeat you if you know that. And I notice so many people not understanding that. That this is what we focus on in the district, that nobody outside the district, not just the people that come and visit periodically and come to the meetings just to see what we're doing, Nobody understands that if you hear them talking out there about this and what we're doing, they have no clue. They're a divisive agent. You have to know that. And so again, I try to keep my information as pure as I can. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what other words to use. I try to keep it as objective and experientially constrained. In other words, I guess any promotion I'm doing is really what I'm telling you is those things that we do that are successful, that I don't say we were successful. I just tell you that what you need to do. But I'm not telling you anything that was not successful, and if it wasn't successful, I would just tell you that we don't go there. Don't go down that part of the trail, unless you have an answer for a problem that we find. And so I guess my promotion is hidden in my very words right now, in that I'm telling you the things that we find that are working, are not working, the dangers, the pitfalls, and the only protection that any of you have is if you finally intend to roll up your sleeves about some oppression, and you start actually getting the foundation of what the subject matter is, what I call the battlefield, and then get the foundation of what's being intruded, which means you have to investigate what the actual foundation of law is for your subject matter. That's the only thing I've found that'll protect you. It protects everybody that we teach to do that. And all we're teaching is to go read the law, the black and white, the things that are relevant in the subject matter of the importance of the decision maker. And that could be you. You could be a decision maker. You're a decision maker to make the intention to roll up your sleeves of some wrong you need to make right, something that you need to bring behind the woodshed. See, my comment has always been about this broadcast in the little phraseology is open you a can of whoop-ass. It was never about what I'm going to do to you. It's about what you are going to do to what you find, as I call now, the oppressor, any oppressor. And so, I'm off again. I'm always off these trails. Understand those of you that have been lots of emails going out and things about the district updates. Don't listen to anybody else that's talking about the district. They have no clue. They really have no clue. They have no concept of how things are done. And here's the point. For those of you that might kind of get this idea. The mining districts were not actually Soviet or central control. There wasn't actually dictators in mining districts. What there was a bunch of people that came together in order to protect themselves when they were the oppressed and there was an oppressor out there, even the government itself. That when you listen to people, you'll start to hear that, for the most part, people think that these mining districts were having to have a central authority that commanded over a territory. That's not the case at all. Each landowner, each grantee, was why the district had power, wherever the grantee is, and whatever the grantee did. And we're all talking only within the law. We're not talking about whatever you did as some trespasser somehow. In fact, that was why a lot of the regulations were made, to stop this. The whole point about a mining district was started because the miners were killing themselves for a little piece of yellow metal. And there was a little more aware guy that said, we got to stop doing this, and to do that, we're going to need a set of rules. Now, we call those laws. They're recognized as laws, if you haven't figured that out. And the miner brought peace to his own life, however imperfect that was. But he brought it where he was, from his land. And so, when you realize that, every one of you can be conceived of in a monstrous mining district, where you can show you have property that you possess. Not own, but possess. Go look at the terminology. You don't own. I told you that word is almost like a hand grenade. Be careful on who's pulling the pin on it. I found a definition a long time ago which I didn't document, and I'm sad to do that that I didn't do that because it's very important. But the definition of owned was one who is owned. One owner was one who is owned. And you got to think about that because it's coming from a statutory position. One who is owned. So what the word in the disposal laws are, though, is possession and enjoyment. So you're possessed of something. Not possessed in the witchcraft way, as causing spelling and spells, as we were talking in the RLM chat last night. But you have You're in possession, not possessed, but in possession of something. And now you have obligations and duties as well, but this is why that becomes potentially a problem. But when you understand the underlying foundation of the law that's supposed to be recognized by a lawful government, not the trespassing government, then you realize that it's not a burden that way. The burden really is what you took on when you accepted to take on the property and the possession and enjoyment that was granted. And the highest level of grant would be total granting. So that's why you have to look within the four corners of your document. You've heard me say all this way before, a long time ago. We go through this over and over. It's all the same. And I don't even think about it until I start talking about the subject matter. That we have a substantial thing we possess and enjoy to the limits of the grant in the law. And why do we do it that way? Is because we need an instrument that's protected in a record that's perpetual, that a valid lawful court would look at as evidence to balance out, or not balance, but to determine by the law, the information contained within the four corners of all these documents, what you're entitled to. And I don't mean that entitlement, I mean that what your rights are to have and possess and enjoy. And there are reservations, and if there are, sometimes there are, and if there are reservations, you're subject to those. Those are all documented, though. They're not made up. And so this is a very interesting and organized way to determine what is ours and what is not, and to the extent. And this is what I speak to with, the Dakota stuff. I mean, it's pretty simple. But lots of noise around that, folks, I just tell you. Lots of noise. And that just ripples out to everyone wants to start talking about the noise. And the noise signal to noise ratio is terrible now about all that. And I keep trying to calm it down and say, listen, we're in an occupied country. You better figure out how to work with the occupier, not with it, but work around it. And we have some insight. Remember, I don't say about solutions. We have some insight. You never know the outcome of a war until it's over. And even then, you may have a new battle to fight because we're just not that cool. As people, we're just not that cool. And we have to come to terms with that. So, I went way off here, but I'm just wanting to know what I'm thinking here, pausing again. I just get kind of thoughtful about what's going on in this world. It's not very cool at all. None of it. And so I'm doing what I can. I'm asking you to do what you can, even if it's just, again, not to even ask you, even if it's just to put a like. I guess if you put enough likes, people think, oh, there must be something interesting in there. Pass the file around, this broadcast around. I don't know. I don't know what the real answer here is to get people to take the first step. Now, that all said, now that I'm talking about patents, I did hear a little bit of yesterday's Smoke and Mirrors, Rob's broadcast, new broadcast, second time, I think. They were talking about patents. They were talking about all kinds of things as well. But I've talked about all of that prior, not to diminish that broadcast. The thing is, you have to listen very carefully. There's some things that work, and there's some things that's not. There's some things that you're still studying, and there's some things that you know. And you really have to listen careful on something like that. And again, as I listened to a part of that broadcast, I would have to sit down with the gentleman that was speaking about it, and we'd have to get some things straightened up before we could actually move forward on discussions, just to make sure that our terminology was not different, so that we come from the same base. So, again, I've done all the, I keep wanting to go off. My mind says let's just start discussing all this other stuff, but I've already discussed a lot of these matters. And so they should, so I guess my suggestion to you is if you can catch on to a past broadcast where I'm talking on these subject matters, I don't think that I was ever wrong on all of that, as I periodically would find myself listening or find a way to listen to other broadcasts. Someone will send me an email, and I'll listen to a section. And I haven't found an actual error yet in what I've said before, and I don't know why there would be, because it's really just coming out of the words that were given, that how this all works. Now, there may be new techniques to learn. I haven't found any quite yet. But you should be balancing what is said anymore today with what I was saying, and just any distinction, the differences you have to work out. Now, that might be important. It may be something that we didn't see that you're seeing. And so, like I said, my mind keeps wanting to go talk on other things, but it's just so endless what we can talk about that it isn't an endless discussion once you see the black and white. It's like when I'm listening, people send me emails with videos to go watch. And we were talking a little bit about this in the chat last night. everyone says that they won their case and they win and they prevailed and all this other, well, they use the word prevailed, but they win their case. And I listened to the video, and there's no such thing as a win, even by their own statements. So there's a lot of people on the internet that are going along and finding out stuff that I found out decades ago. It ain't so easy. This system is set up to take you down. And if you don't know the process of the system, and lots of it, I don't know how much you can know, but you will be defeated at every turn. And one of the main things I mentioned last night that I hear people making the major mistakes is not understanding some real basics on the process of the courts. Yes, they're corrupt, and yes, but once they got you in their grip, folks, you're not getting out. That's one of the main problems. And you may not be able to get out because they're an organized criminal syndicate. And I say that, and people will tell me, oh, you can't mean that all over. You always beat down on the Bar Association like they're defenseless, folks. It's a legal entity of a bunch of people that are in membership to hurt you. And if you don't know that, you haven't read enough. Yes, I'm saying that they are all corrupt all the time. And their judges come from the same membership. And their system is what you're under. The whole set of rules and why you go to policy is because of the Bar Association. All the legal entities that came up after that time are subject to those rules and regulations. Subject to what? I've read it behind the Woodshed plenty of times. I mentioned it. The Model Business Corporation Act. I don't know why it takes a genius to figure out you don't live in a de jure country when you're dealing with Model Business Corporation Acts as law. Again, I keep repeating myself. I don't know who listens to this stuff that picks up the repetition and gets tired of it. The answer is already before us. All it now is action. In listening to the broadcast a bit about the patent information, it occurred to me in listening to the lineage, the history of where the gentleman came from that did the research that came to these points that he has. I make no judgment on any of that right now at this point. It wasn't really enough information to comment about. But he essentially lined out what I've done. It was pretty his path, what he came to know by his proofs. I was looking and listening and saying, well, that's really my track in where he was saying he found out he could take tests pretty easily. It got him into linguistics. It got him into going to language school. You've heard me say all this that I didn't do, that he ended up doing. But the track was very similar, very parallel. That he came to the point that an objective, external, interested party, the government, identified that his track was one that he could do systems analysis. Now, I've never looked at myself as doing that at all. And yet his track paralleled what I got myself thinking, I've done all those things. I've analyzed this complex system. I've run through the nuts and bolts of it. I know it pretty good. This thing that we're up against. And so it occurred to me his mind was like my mind. And it occurred to me because I'm looking for why. Why is it some of us see this and lots of people can't? And it has to do with superiority. It has to do with however we're wired, however we're put together. And not everyone's wired the same. It doesn't mean that we don't have the same obligation and duty to throw down oppression. What I'm saying is each one of us is going to have a piece to that puzzle that is the oppressor that we're against. And in the same token, as there may only be a few of us that can do systems analysis to be able to find out what we're against in the battle. What is this thing we're battling? The battlefield itself and the things that made that battlefield necessary. There are others that do other things that now, it occurs to me, and I'm trying to find out a way so that I don't get so beat down about why I don't see so many people not engaging this oppressor. There is an oppression. Are you going to stand by and witness it and become the accessory to it? It is really something in my mind that troubles me. And I have to find ways to distance myself from the depression, if you will, the dismay, but all these negative kind of emotion issues that you're looking for the better day and you're not seeing it happen. That my skill set apparently is one of systems analysis, though I never thought of it before. It parallels someone else who came to his own study for his reasons, that he comes out to, for what I could hear, very consistent information, going by very consistent pathways that I did, using very consistent terms that I told you before, shows confirmation of a properness. If you can repeat something over and over, folks, it's what they call science, the scientific process. That I realize I have that skill set, If it was the government looking at my capacity, they would have put me in linguistics. And guess what? I've already told you that's what happened. When I took tests to try and get into the military that wouldn't have me, it was always I was going to be a linguistics specialist. They were going to send me to the same language school that he mentioned he went to, and everything else was almost identical. I just didn't go down that path. My skill set is one, apparently, of complex systems analysis. And I just fell into that. I've just been doing that for 30 years. Now, you may not have that skill set, but here's the good news. You no longer have to, short of my failures, to find the more complex answer of something I haven't seen yet. But then again, you don't need to. I have done pretty much that. And here's how I say I've done it, is because our lawsuit was really the foundation asserting point. We took the view of this complex system, boiled it down to its common denominators, found the harm within that, and sued to enjoin it. The monstrous organized criminal syndicate we have are the people in government. We sued to enjoin. Now, what's the cause and effect of that? It may be debatable, but the fact is we have that foundation based on its complex system analysis for it, and did what we could to lay the foundation for you all not to have to figure that out again. You will have to do some basic research to find out that that it was correct, what was done, but you get to now not make that a question, which I've looked at for years, people doing. They keep questioning what they're up against. They keep making questions to this organized criminal syndicate for an answer, which I see as a major problem in all these court cases that I see come on the internet about I won my traffic ticket. No, you didn't. We've done the system analysis. Now you get to take it on. You don't have to create. It's not a question what you're up against is what I can tell you. Everyone wants to make a question about this, and it has been a question. I really believe those of us that are, and I have to, if I can put myself in here, complex system analysis people have done that. We really have figured it out pretty good, at least well enough that people can take it to the bank, if I can put it that way. And so it's easy once you see the system how to boil down the problem, and then once you see that, you know how to avoid or take out the oppressor that's causing it. And that's just what I go through all the time. Maybe that's why it sounds so obscure to most people. I'm talking really maybe from that system analysis and not doing such a good job, although I don't think I do too bad, actually. If you really listen to what I'm saying. I do the part that shows you that system is there, and I show you all the ways and all the places that the evidence of it exists to get you beyond the point. Again, I've told you I've been down those paths. That's what I'm talking about, apparently. At least one thing I appreciated in the broadcast of Smoke and Mirrors yesterday was keying into that in me with the other gentleman speaking of his experience. And I'm saying, well, that's a lot of what I did, but I didn't go that route. I went through very close down the same path. He was on one side and I was on the other, essentially, in our life experience. I never looked at it myself in that regard, but now that I do, I can see why I do things. I do things the way I've been doing, and no one else might be able to understand it. And to me, that's kind of exciting, because that means that I'm laying my jigsaw puzzle piece on the table now. You can now put your piece onto that. We can build this puzzle that's been made, this labyrinth of deception. We can figure it out. I've put my piece, a jigsaw puzzle piece, on the table. You have to put yours next to mine. Your skill set is different than mine. Find out what it is. Apply that to what I'm doing. I guess that's what I've been asking you all this. It's a little bit of a revelation in a way. It's one of those quick little flashes. And I'm taking a little bit of a long time that I never thought I was going to do the discussion to tell you about that. But I think people have to understand you all have your place. I've talked about it like this before. We're a jigsaw puzzle piece. There's lots of ways to explain this, to try and get people to see what's going on. You don't have to do what I've done. You just have to prove enough that I've done it correct, and then put your piece next to mine. I told you we've laid a foundation that is so huge, I don't even know what to tell you. And I didn't use the why. I didn't speak like Trump, even though it may sound like it. It wasn't huge. It was huge. I can't tell you. It really is a foundational centerpiece to the puzzle that we all have a part in. So if lots of people that I'm involved with, even my listenership, can't quite get what I'm doing, but they kind of see the truth of it, that's the part you take to the bank. your part's supposed to tag on to that. If I'm with a bunch of people that quite get it, but they understand what I'm saying, I'm now able to say, well, I've got my part, they have theirs. I can sit in anticipation. We're gonna link up. Because I'm doing what I did, they see that's okay, they have another skill to add. We're not redundant. Each one of us brings to the table our power. And I guess in my optimism, I'm hoping that we see that in ourselves. I think I've always known this in us. I think that's why I speak around it. I don't get too esoteric. I realize that's kind of a problem. We can get lost in all this esotericism as well. It's kind of like the same problem of people thinking, well, I'm thinking critically, I'm going through the trivium, and they can show you chapter and verse, and they go 10,000 different falsities in the world, and they never get anything done. No different. I've been told, well, have you read Sun Tzu, The Art of War? Well, I did, but so long ago I don't really remember it. Well, how can you just read a book one time decades ago and actually be told here in the future now from there, well, you follow all the aspects of that book? Well, there must be something pretty true about that, those principles in it then. And if that's the case, it's more confirmation that I have to continue that path, and I'm mimicking an example that's successful. There shouldn't be any excuse why all y'all shouldn't pick your skill set and apply your own power to that. And I guess that's one of my kind of dismays. I see people putting a lot of energy outside of their actual skill set. They'll never fulfill themselves, and we won't fulfill ourselves. And like as I said, what if this whole life is about, did you stand up to the oppressor? And wouldn't that be a crying shame when you find out and at the end you didn't, and that was the test, and you failed? And in a way, I think of that way, and I pause, I get kind of sad that is pretty simple, but that's pretty much what we're dealing with when we talk about it in the religious sense about the battle of good and evil. You don't think that's a battle? It's in yourself. How can you deny it? This is the fallen nature. However you connote that, it's still there. The protocols of the elders of Zion speak to it. We're going to use that fallen nature in you against you. And we know it's there, and you most likely don't. You got to think about, I guess you don't have to do anything, but I'll say it again. You got to think about that. You really have to think about that. We're being used, we're being plugged in, we're being taken advantage of. We want to, in our hearts of hearts, we believe everyone around us is doing good. And really, that's not what happens. First of all, people aren't like that actually. Really, to my dismay. I don't know why, but they're not. And then you throw on this layer called fiction, they're tools of people to do things that aren't necessarily easily done without these tools, called legal corporations. And I don't really get to in this case, don't get all wiped out about legal. I've told you about that. It's really kind of a neutral thing. It's legal for those that have to be in it. It's not legal for those that are not. It's crime to be drug into legal when you're not. It's certainly not a crime when you consented by application to have legal thrown on you. There's a big old wet blanket. You then get, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know this was supposed to be that wet and cold. Well, that's not our problem. No, you were supposed to have due diligence, as they'll tell us, to stay away from that. The problem is when you haven't done that, and they drag you in. And getting back to the court cases I've seen on the traffic, long way divergent to come back, talking in the chats, I said, it's really, anybody that walks into a court and uses the advice on the internet to demur to the court while you're making a challenge to the jurisdiction is dumb. A demur is a traverse. It says, I don't care. It doesn't matter that you charge me for the crime. What? Who cares? Here's another reason why it doesn't matter. So what? I'm charged with the crime. Well, when you say that, you're saying that inside the jurisdiction, aren't you? So a demur, a traverse, is not the answer first if you're challenging jurisdiction. Now, I know I'm talking only to a few of you that listen about what I say legal and technical. This applies to everything in your life. We make the wrong answers to the wrong point. And the other thing I notice that people do, they think they know so much when they walk into the courts and they ask the judge a question. Folks, what have I told you about asking anybody anything? You agree to receive the answer. You agree to the authority that they've shown you for the answer. And if you've agreed to ask them the question to get the answer, you can't very well say they didn't have authority to give it and challenge them further on it. Why you ask a question in a court where you're challenging jurisdiction is dumb. What have I suggested to you as a better approach? I say better because they're organized criminals. You just want to make a record, haven't I said as well? Don't you then run over if you have a problem with the jurisdiction? Isn't there, and remember, what everyone's missing is that this rule, this due process is a presumptive and burden shifting. Presumptive and burden shifting. And the trick is to rebut the presumption and or shift the burden away from you. And you do that going in. You don't do that after you've been asking questions on the court about. You run in on how they figure this, how you figure this out is on what is your remedy. See, folks, they go, you haven't. One of the things I saw was the judge will say, well, I realize you don't want to make motions for the court, completely blowing over the fact that they made a motion in demur. See, the judges are really slick about this. I know you're not wanting to put a motion in the court, because everyone says, oh, you can't put a motion in the court, but they do a demur, so that's like an oxymoron to start with. But they say, I'm not going to make a motion. The judge says, okay, I know you don't want to make a motion, but you're making an argument. And the one making the supposed challenge doesn't say anything. Folks, let me get back to the simple word. What's an argument? Isn't another word for an argument merely an issue? And isn't the trier of fact to determine issues? And so when you said, when the judge says, oh, I know you don't want to make a motion, but your argument is, and you don't say, no, I'm not making an issue for your determination, I'm challenging your jurisdiction, and I'm imposing a remedy, which is your burden to fulfill, is the proper answer, which is not being stated. When the judge says you're making an argument, and you don't say no, you've agreed to that authority to determine the underlying issue. The word argument means you're proposing. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, this word nonsense is nonsense. You're right. But this is the battlefield. This is how they're taking people down. If more people knew what I'm telling you, and maybe beyond what I'm telling you, when they go read for themselves and find new revelations that I haven't had a chance because I kept moving myself, there may be things I didn't uncover. But once we all know this stuff stops. Because once you start doing these burden-shifting, presumption-killing motions, not motions, actions, remedies, they're remedies you're doing. And you use writs to do this as well. You start to turn the record to show the criminals that you're up against. And if there was more people doing this and coming together, especially with this Internet, I think this thing starts to end really quickly. Until that time, we're all going to be beat down, even those of us that sound like we know what we're doing. See, we don't make the puzzle. Jigsaw puzzle's not complete because I lay my piece down on the table, folks. If I'm wrong that what piece we've laid down is not the centerpiece, I'm going to tell you it's going to be awful close. I'm looking for one of you to make the centerpiece then. I want to put my puzzle piece next to yours. I want to fulfill what we have to do to stop an oppressor. There are some basic tendrils of this creature that attach us. One is our belief in this legal system, in the fictions, and then the improper argument against a fiction, or the argument at all against a fiction, but I mean our improper perception that they're somehow always evil. They're actually not. They're only evil when they harm you, or they're used as cover to harm you. Remember, a color of authority that comes to destroy your rights, remedies, or property, or turns that over to someone without a right to them, is a felony, extortion, or coercion. Now, those of you that are sharp, you would have picked up, but extortion is the only equal right you have under Title 42 U.S.C. 1981, and you'd be correct, except that's to a certain status, isn't it? And if you're the one that says that your remedies are based in the law and not the legal, not the policy, you have priority status. And so it doesn't apply to you in the context of an equal right, which is a obligation and duty to be submitting and subject to extortion. And when you understand this distinction, you start to understand how the world, to parse the world you see. That's one part. That's one part of the part. I got to be careful talking absolutes always. So, they use a lot of tendrils. This system that they have around us that we don't understand, the ignorance that they impose upon us that we allow to continue. I'm evidence of that. Whatever I can do in my status, my capacity to see systems, complex systems, and analyze and bring it down through linguistics. Remember, all these things worked to bring us into an ability to see things that we hadn't seen before, and fairly clear. I think it's fairly clear now. Not just beyond opinion, beyond opinion, not just opinion. Not just because we think so, not because we have a theory. This is tried and true. This is the way it works. And not many people want to put their puzzle piece down is really a dismay to me, because that means the quicker we do this, the sooner we get to see what the picture was that we fulfilled for ourselves along this jigsaw puzzle piece methodology. And so the tendrils are the legal system and tied very carefully with this as law imposed as reality. It's not. It's a fiction. But you agreed to it by your improper process and your proper addressments with it, impliedly giving it authority by filing a demur, asking a question of this officer that you're challenging. Why would you ask someone a question that wasn't qualified to give you an answer? Is your first problem. You have to qualify their right ability to give you an answer first. That's not asking a question. That is challenging, by a certain provision of law, that authority to say so, where it shifts the burden. Not the right to answer a question, it shifts the burden of production. When you ask the question about jurisdiction of a one not having it, they're going to say they have it. You haven't shifted the burden that they have to produce the proof of it. There's a special form for that. It's called quo warranto. I've explained this over and over. And I see thousands and thousands of people listening to everybody else. And they won't do this simple little process for themselves to see how it works. Now, the problem is, they're criminals. What you're only going to get is the record that they defaulted to answer that. And there's a rule to follow back behind that. That's what happened in our case, our lawsuit in 2013. We filed 2 quo warrantos. And they were defaulted. They never answered. We shifted the burden and the presumption. They failed to rebut our challenge that they did not have jurisdiction or authority. They had no warrant in law is the challenge. They have to prove that they do have it. It isn't a silent statement. I'm not asking them any questions. It's a burden of production to refute the fact that it doesn't appear on the record they have it. They are obligated to produce it. When they don't, they're a criminal. It's pretty simple. Why don't I hear more people doing that? Why don't I hear people rallying around that to do that? It's kind of a dismay to me. And okay, that's court stuff. The same thing goes down when you're going to pay a bill. Well, now we get into money. You get Fair Debt Collection Practices Acts. Why don't you know the law that protects you? That's federal law around finances, monetary instruments, financial agreements, contracts. Why is everybody so distant on this that they think they can deny their responsibility to understand it? We talked last week about the credit reporting agencies being caught doing frauds. And my question was, not a question, so what? That's covering, it was a fact of observation. That story is covering the probability that these reporting agencies are working hand in hand or as front companies to the banking system itself. If they diminish your reports and they create your reports to be wrong or lower, they can charge you more fees, can't they? They suck more value from you, the parasite that it is. And so here this week, right on the heels of that, folks, it's all before us. Moody's, it's even deeper. Moody's to pay $864 million for its role in subprime mortgage crisis. Moody's Corporation will pay $864 million to settle federal and state claims. This is another violation to you as well. Federal and state, were you part of the case? No, but they're federal and state claims, not private claims, that it gave misleading ratings to risky mortgage investments, leading to the subprime mortgage crisis in the U.S. and to the Great Recession, so-called. This was a plan, folks. But if they will give misleading ratings for getting the investment, don't you think that these companies know to make misleading representations on your credit score? If you don't start putting this together and pull the ring out of your nose that makes you an accessory to the crime against you, I don't know about you, actually. Now, listen how this works out. In a deal, Trump's going to make lots of deals here, folks, so figure this one out, too. In a deal announced January 13th, rating agencies will give $437.5 million to the Justice Department, Department, and $426.3 million to be divided amongst the 21 involved states and the District of Columbia, if you didn't know what your U.S. territory is. The DOJ takes $437 million, and it's going to then give $426 million to the 21 other parties that are called states. Not you, the states. The states that are within the territory of the United States and the District of Columbia, which is not a state. The class of which is not the United States of America. It's the United States. Two distinct entities. The Department of Justice is the attorneys taking the lion's share for itself, folks. I go off in all this stuff. So we see a ton in the first paragraph of this. Moody's did, in fact, make misleading ratings. I correlate to your reporting agencies in this credit plunder system to doing misleading credit reports. And they're in control of that whole thing anyway. That you won't get remedy, the government will get remedy. Why? Because you don't understand your place in it's not even a pecking order. You don't even understand your place in this system, the host that you are to this parasite. And the parasite wins, always. To me, this is just more proof, beyond opinion, that the system that you've been plugged into was made for you to plug in, and you did. We have complete deception, and then in the outing of the deception, this became so bad, they had to have some scapegoat. Remember, the government allows this. The government allows this by not regulating it. In fact, they deregulated it. That's how the plan developed in 2009. The monetary world is completely controlled. They now tie it into the digital dollars, whatever they're bringing on. Your whole system is controlled against you. The fix is in. It was so bad they had to find a scapegoat. That's why this even came out. But the government allowed it. The DOJ that got paid, whatever got paid. What did it get paid, folks? These FRNs, this nonsense. It just put back money back into the system to go back out to another place to plunder you. Is someone in some group out there, some people, not a group, but a few of you, don't even know yourselves, have the skill set to track this down, to find the remedy, to make it a notice to everybody that it's going on and that you're doing your best to stop it. What we've attempted to do with the Bar Association itself. Leverage funding was what we got, and I'd forget to finish this point. The leverage funding is what started our lawsuit more than the moratorium against the mining. That was black hole funding, what I call black hole funding. Leverage funding is the thing they're doing and using to destroy this country, and the lawmakers are in on it behind the scenes in their hedge funds, that when you make a black hole funding, you securitize this leveraged funding. They tell you exactly that it's in the financial system. It's leveraged funding. It's going to be leveraged, not in your favor, It's going to be leveraged in the favor of the people that know about it, that have the hedge funds that invest in it in perpetuity. And the lawmakers know about this. This is what's going on in your conservation with Obama, just throwing down more national monuments. As soon as you're going to find out everywhere they go, they inventory everything. They know down to the last good estimated dollar, what it is they're dealing with in money. They conserve that. They put it in non-use, and those lawmakers are in the hedge funds that are investing in that value of non-use that is then monetized, bonded again, derivatized based on the bond, more value is put in that these corporations, these investment corporations are investing in. Your lawmakers are in on it. This now is you find out now this is what goes on with the Bundys, and this is what goes on with the Hammonds and the miners. And a few years ago, they want this land. They want to take the value. They really can't keep you from it, so they have to close you out of it. They can't do it without closing it out. If you haven't been hearing what I've been saying, I guess this is the point about coming to the monetization of things. The government is in on it. Then they'll take a part of the take of the outing of it as a scapegoat. They won't stop any of it. Did you get any of this action? No. And if you squawk a bit, they'll give you some crumbs to shut you up, and you'll take it. And yet we have a bigger battle. See, they've got us diminished. It's all so clear. Do I have an answer to it all? Well, no, because I don't. I just tell you it's there. I tell you what we do. There's going to have to be someone with a skill set better than mine in that area, and there is one. It's not because I don't have it. Someone else is out there. I had my skill set. I could probably take my skill set, apply it to this if I was able, had more another life to do it. Just another system to analyze, I suppose. But we have the proof of it here. We don't have to worry so deep. We already know the system, that why leveraged funding was such a danger that it motivated me to go ahead and move very quickly on our lawsuit. It was way bigger than the moratorium. The moratorium, in fact, there was a value placed on the value for the mining that the moratorium is allowing to be a secured asset to, that is being monetized in leveraged funding. That was what we called SB 839 in Oregon. Leveraged funding speaks to the entirety of your system of finances. There's a big, dark, deep hole of investment going on back in there. And they do it by securing away the value that they inventory. That's why they're supposed to do federal inventories. That's what the problem is. And then they inventory it incorrectly. Now, we sit on the front line trying to work on the inventory, and they're working it incorrectly when we're not aware that the system is set up to eventually take that because they have inventoried it, and we don't attack it. No, we attack it at Jefferson Mining District, but what I'm saying is we don't know as a people to do these things. We don't even see how this works. We have an inkling. I talked to many people, so I knew there was something here about that. I said, no, you're right, but it's deeper. It's not just systemic government. We're giving the land over to the Chinese. No, this is lawmakers that are involved in the fiscal side of this, on the investment side. That's why people like DeFazio can have a home down in New Zealand. I live behind the Woodshed. He's got a home in New Zealand. He's been a public servant for 30-something years. And he's got a second home at least in New Zealand, if not more. How? This is how, folks. And if you're crickets against this, that's your future. You will be pushed into your little stack 'em and pack 'ems because they've taken all the land and conserved it away from you. It was a war crime, but no one seems to want to step up and call it that. And I guarantee you, when you do, they're not going to agree with that, but that's because that's what's already happened to us. Go to Jefferson Mining District, look on the right-hand side near the top underneath the second two tables, and you'll see that conservation's a war crime. You'll see our comment to the DEQ or to the land as well. We send it both. We said this is your conservation, your non-use of these resources is a war crime. Do you think that a war criminal cares? So we need help, I guess is the point. We need more people coming to observe and then act in unison, not unity, but unison on the protection of their country. It's all, to me, I look at this stuff and I'm just seeing exactly the tail of the admission of the entirety, just in this first two paragraphs, actually, because when you follow the money, folks. I mean, it's all the same thing. The fix is in. Why do we tolerate that? The fix is in to control things in our lives that help us out. Why? Why do we allow ourselves to be treated like the livestock they treat us as? The beasts of burden, the human resource. The words are there. The linguistics is there, folks. You don't have to go invent stuff. The problem is when you hear it, you have to think about it. You got to settle with it a little bit and really think about it. And then I'm hoping that there's an offense to your mind, offense to your spirit, more importantly. And you just say, I'm going to stop that oppressor. That I don't know why I think somehow I feel more, in the last few weeks, I think I'm more interested or found it more important about this cannabis stuff than all y'all that are actually enjoying it. And I say that because I hear crickets on the response, and I say, did you write your DEA? Did you write anything to the government to put yourself in line as an objector to the oppression of the withholding of things that come from the land that it can be used by you to help you naturally? More studies came up, and I heard these on Freaker's Ball. I didn't hear these. I just heard something, and I tried to track it down. I didn't get the link. Again, I'm in and out, so I don't get into the chats that night, and I get in late, and then I hear the tape, and I don't get the link, so I had to make it up. So I apologize. Maybe in the RLM chat they can put this in. If anybody was tuned in on UCY and was in the chat and tuned it, maybe you can go back and get those links while I'm talking. There was a statement talking about now studies coming out that the benefit of they're calling it medical marijuana. I only bring this up, and this is where I wonder whether or not I think this is more important than all y'all that really should be speaking up better than me. The ones that participate, that find the use, that understand this better than me, that have the talent to go after that, to write up simple little statements. It was a whole string of studies now that have come out, and I was triggered by this one that was talked about in Freaker's Ball on Friday night, Grimner and Moose Girl. A study of fatal car accidents shows medical marijuana may help curb opioid use. Now, there was a lot of statements made in this, and that I may have misunderstood the decrease level in fatal car by what I heard Grimner talking about. So I want to hold back on what my thought I heard is. You can read the story. They do mention here 9% reduction. I didn't realize this was a study on the transfer of medical remedy or treatment, if this is the same story. But here's another thing. You'll get a link in the Blogcaster, and I'm going to have a lot of links. So a lot of time is going to be spent tonight putting these links into the Blogcaster. It may come up a little bit later than normal into Gary Eld and Gigi's Boo broadcast 2 hours after my broadcast. So tune in. They do some of the more esoteric ideas of things that are going on that you can see that we can or can't prove ideas and things like that. Like last year they were talking, what was it, ghosts or something. So anyway, you might want to tune in to Real Liberty Media on Sunday 2 hours after my broadcast, or go to the file of the podcast to listen in. But a study of fatal car accidents shows medical marijuana may curb opioid use. Fatal car accidents was the object, based on however they did this study, to show that there's being a transfer going from opioids to medical marijuana. And my thought was for you all that it can make a letter, this would show as a study from a Columbia University mailman as a line item reference at least, if not in appendix, including the study, and read it so you understand it, that we now see medical applications. We see people will choose this over medical applications that are prescribed under law, which are harmful, that make this medical marijuana at least, and then extend it over to those that are not in medical marijuana, which may participate in what they call recreational, which is covering a medical need. You can put a line item, a statement about that there are studies now that show that medical marijuana is a replacement for a pharmaceutical a pseudo-medicinal use that the government will not recognize under the fraud of failed science and the intention to make profit for the companies it covers in the prohibition of this material. Another study came out as I went there and I heard that study. Again, this is not going to prove anything. This gives you standing to go on and enjoin a rule which will make the use of that CBD oil illegal. That's at least the start of it. You could be the crowbar yourself. Could be the crowbar in bringing all this forward that finally breaks the limpet off the rock. This government off its rock and says, no, you didn't have the right to do what you did. And you lied when you started saying there was no good use, and you lied when you did your propaganda back in the 30s or 40s, whenever it was. And you've hurt people. You're harming people. People that would naturally make the decision to go to medical marijuana in lieu of opioids, which apparently the use of causes more fatal car crashes if the side effects in the opioids itself doesn't harm people in the long term. Second study, legalizing medical marijuana reduces traffic fatalities as an extension under the Department of Labor. Think about this human resource connection, Institute of Study of Labor. So I'm pointing out here, and I need to move on really quickly, but I just collected up quite a few links in just a few moments on the instance of what Grimner was reading. I said, wow, okay, there's studies now coming out. These would need to be for all y'all that are filing the DEA comments and the FDA comments and just any comment to the government to expose this fraud that's harming people. Along the lines of what I said, go look at that video from last week about the grand mal seizures being stopped in 20 minutes with, I don't think there was any side effect. Immediately. 20 seconds. This has to start being documented. This is what we have to do when you live with an oppressor in an occupied territory. I don't like it, but it's what we have to do. Otherwise, it continues, and it's going to get worse. I can't see it going any other way. Since marijuana legalization, highway fatalities in Colorado are at near historic lows. And I point on transportation a bit here because the new transportation intermodal plans are UN. They're utilizing transportation and its needs and its public safety as another ostensible pretext to control your life. As I tell you, they're going to control your roads, which you have prior right of claim of the possession of. It's right in the law. It's possession, not ownership. Possession of the highways and trails, and the transportation is going to cover over that and steal it from you if you don't step up. JeffersonMiningDistrict.com, go at Highways and Trails document. You can read the base in the first part. First, it's only a 4-page document. You can read what I'm saying is the thing. If you know what you're slowly take your time and read what's going on about the highways. The authority is exclusive vested in the county for all's right to travel on the highway. All right? It's your right of enjoyment and use. It's not right to drive. The county is the exclusive holder, and for our purposes in the Jefferson Miners, it's about the closures. There's no unilateral closure of power even in the county. Why? Because this is a pre-existing claim of possession by the people. What they used to call the public in the past, the public now is the government, but in the past the word public meant people. And so they're coming in on the new agenda through transportation and your carbon tax, and everything's coming through this transportation. Why this becomes important to start focusing on also this transportation and the fact of if you're going to go to safety and security on the highway, you are a criminal, like I've been saying, to not allow people to self-medicate. Here's the proof. Line item discussion. You need to read this so you understand it, but you don't need to go on and on about it. You just refer to it, give a synopsis, put that in a comment, and send it in where you need to on time. Marijuana legalization, research review on crime and impaired driving. Not just impaired driving, but crime. And it shows favorable again. Now, these may be interlocked stories. The point is that there's studies you can get. You can make this important to all y'all that participate and partake, enjoy, or use marijuana for whatever use. You can show now that if the government is going to take a blind eye to what it does good it's committing a fraud. It's committing a fraud on the record. It's ultimately for committing fraud on the court to not agree that these things are there, or to put such constraints upon it as to make it as impossible to make it a proof. That then also causes harm, is the extension that you have to show. It has to be a harm that's caused, is really all a complaint is. You have an action that wasn't right, that no one had license to do, that caused you harm. That's a complaint. You don't need to go on and on. Why medical marijuana law reduces traffic ticket. Now, this is interesting. They're going to give you the why. Okay, fine. Find out the authority. Says a study does this. Find out what they claim is the reason. It might be all it might be all part of the same story, folks. I think there's actually 2 or 3 different studies. The point is, read. Here it is. I'm giving you the tools for those of you, and I think it'd be a great service anyway. After seeing the grand mal seizure thing and seeing other people, the Simpson guy, he's gotten a good use. I've heard people using it have good use. I know of people that use it in different forms that find medical use, so I know it's out there. If I was blind to it before, it's pretty clear now. There's a big fraud going on in the government that is there, okay, but you have to now figure out the steps to solve it. You have to call them out for who they are, get a record, a proper record made. I can't see how this is that hard. I'm dismayed that people think this is that hard. Again, I'll just make the same, beating the dead horse almost. I keep beating on this dead horse. Maybe it's not dead. Maybe it'll get up. All the chats and all the discussion and all the emails and all the things I say that talk of every other thing than this, if you're interested, is a waste of time. Once you do this, go ahead and chat away. Persistence on this, go ahead and chat away. Focus on this, and some of your time is going to be spent typing this instead of all the other things. And you will be stepping into a place that no one can deny to you. You will see the truth about what we're up against. You'll be part of the solution and not an accessory to the crime against you and everybody else that you could have helped if given you have the talent, the skills applied, as I found out through different channels decades later, that look to me through looking through someone else's statements on that Patrick on Smoke and Mirrors, that his objective test for his capacity in a government that is a military that needs to understand the skill set of its people, found him to be a systems analyst, complex systems analyst through linguistics. What is your skill set and your mission purpose, if I can put it that way, for those of you military? And I'm speaking to a lot of old military here. That's what you have time left what's time left with you to go do. Now, I'm trying to lay out the fast points for you to get you started. Again, I can't know all the fulfillment of it. I can just get you started. In other words, I'm attempting to stop the writer's block, the intention block, the identification block. I'm trying to show you this is a target-rich environment. Why aren't you shooting? Why aren't we stopping these criminals? Why aren't we arresting these criminals? Now, we have a long way to go to get there, but why aren't you on the path to be eventually in the place that we can do this? And I suspect once we do this in mass, you start to adjust the criminal's activity and they become less criminal. That's what we've found. We may not have to make any arrests. The criminal will adjust their activity under the scrutiny. In fact, they only are opportunists. If you provide no opportunity because you're there to watch it all the time, that vigilance that the society that we've walked ourselves into is supposed to do to keep these criminals in office from being criminals. Once you make no opportunity because you're there and watching, and they know you're there and watching, and you do it correctly, you don't become a jerk, they will not commit the crime till they think you're not watching. That's the real world, folks. I don't like it, but that's what's happening. And this is the government. That position, that principle is on steroids in this government right now. And we were told it was coming. There should have been no excuse why I have to come and watch people being inactive is really, I don't know. I expected a little bit more of us, but that's my prejudice, isn't it? Robots could soon be classified as electronic persons in Europe. Don't think it's going to be there only. And you have to understand how as we move this thing along, the digitization of things, that electronic persons, that's any device that holds an idea. An idea that can be made from data. Europe's growing army of robot workers Folks, it's all here. They're technocracy. It's not just rising. It's a tsunami going to inundate. It's here. It's on the coast. Europe's growing army of robot workers could be classified as electronic persons and their owners liable to paying Social Security for them if the European Union adopts a draft plan to address the realities of a new industrial revolution. Robots are being deployed in ever greater numbers in factories and also taking on tasks such as personal care or surgery, raising fears over unemployment, wealth inequality, and alienation. If you don't hear the UN Agenda 821 playing a large part right here, let me go back to the electronic persons. I think I heard this on Freaker's Ball as well. Grimner was reading it off. Electronic persons, personhood. They talk about obligations and duties always in personhood. These now electronic devices now have entityship with personhood. When we talk about animals, those monkeys coming out of South America are coming up for their EBT card, folks. Obligations and duties are for persons. Now, we have other obligations and duties as men and women, but we're talking about the legalistic ones. Owners will be liable for paying Social Security for electronic persons, electronic entities. Again, let's go back. There's no gender here either, so any gender argument of social warriors is just another noise. Doesn't actually exist. It gets you focused on it so you fight amongst yourselves. Electronic technocratic persons are here. They're not people. They're proving to you they're legal fictions that are given obligations for payment. They're after the funds. They're after your pocketbook because you keep using the system where the fix is in and they control it. And only to the worst, it's like Moody was just a soldier in the field under the law of war and finally did something so outlandish they had to put the hurt on him monetarily. They didn't stop to kill the soldier. They didn't put him away. They didn't replace them to give the message to the rest of the legal fictions. No, they just charged them and then they took a cut of the action for exposing the very thing the government knows it let happen. Electronic persons. Yeah, I see now quickly Grimmer saying, yeah, the Freaker's Ball is informative. I'm going to have to maybe, I'm waiting, I'm holding back. I may have to make my official protest. You're almost becoming too informative. I'm running out of stuff to talk about on Sunday. Might as well just do your old RLM news show again. I can tiptoe around that while you go 5 days a week. Hint, hint. But again, focus on the point. For me, Grimner brought up his observations, which you have to listen, on his. We all have our view of this. I want you to see the law, legal, fiction, the principle side, the foundation of how this works against us, that we can focus on that instead of, oh, I don't have a job. Oh, I'm going to have to be liable to Social Security. That's just buying into that system. You agree to that? Maybe labor you should confine to women, and the men need to go make a livelihood. How's that? Maybe women need to be livelihood while they're not in labor, creating more production that the government claims, and investing personhood into them by your testimony, and learn how they're making persons electronic or breathing, and then learn how to call that out. As I told you, it's real easy. They make an electronic person. They're going to have to make a registry, a name. You're going to have to register it. They're going to get you to do it. They'll claim that you have the obligation to do it, and you will, instead of saying, wait a minute, what's this jurisdiction we're talking about? What does in the state mean with jurisdiction above the water and the land? Not the land and the water. It's above that, folks. It's a fiction. It's in the ether, if I can say it that way. They tell us everything and we just look past it. Electronic persons, the people who own them, understand these are the Internet of Things, and autonomous action on steroids becomes this problem. Electronic persons becomes your computers in the banking system as well. They will be exempt from any harm they do to while the fix is in and the plunder goes on. And if you don't step up and understand this stuff and either pull yourself out, go back to that lawful system of trade. I can't use the word trade and commerce, of interaction. See, interaction's commerce, they've deemed it. It's all monetary. Every word you do is like in this monetary system. The growing intelligence, pervasiveness, and autonomy requires rethinking of everything from taxation to legal liability. You really have to think about what I just read. Even you have to get the article, sit down and think about this. What legal does is like a derivative. There's really no limit. And then they apply all this nonsense to you, and you are affected by these machines. You're watching technocracy develop in front of your face, and I hear crickets. I see no inherent chasm being rebuilt to buttress the people from this legal system. All driven by the bar everywhere. Remember, there's an international bar association. You need to go to their website. I think they've taken down the history that explains it all. A lot of the history I saw last time was kind of pulled away. That they informed me what the problem was. Integrated with the UN, advises the Holy See. This is the hub of plunder, the hub of Satan. This is not the concentrated evil. This is light. This is evil light. This is the instrument of the evil. This is the agents, the soldiers of evil. And we are crickets to it. It's just an astonishment to me. And maybe I'm just speaking from my ability to do complex systems analysis, and I just take it for granted I see this as evil, and you just all don't see it. And for as hard as I work to try and communicate these things so that you get the point, maybe I'm still not doing quite good enough. Although, and thank you, Vince, for working hard and continuing to listen now with intention. Vince Easley, and coming, he was on the Freakers Ball as well, saying that I'm making sense after he listens with intention to understand. I do make sense, and that's a big deal for me in a way. But I understand. It's just telling me that this is so obscure. And it reminds me how duped we are as people, that we are excusing that dupedness away and choosing the easy path, which is the path with the ring in our nose, to be led to the water to be drowned, not to drink, or the choice. You don't have a choice unless you assert it. That we're seeing transgender being an issue that's a non-issue in legal, which persons are no gender, and then the imposition of technocracy tools will have personhood. This is personhood, you might as well just say, is subjectedness. You're going to be liable. You're being made liable. Now, we have another type of liability where if a piece of equipment, a drone robot does some harm, we already have the law that says you're going to be compensated underneath an objective basis that's ruled supposedly by a judiciary that's independent of any kind of conflict of interest. Now, that's a lie, but that's the way it's supposed to be. Now, we can change that by getting rid of the Bar Association at the start of it, getting rid of the lawyers, throw the lawyers out. Like miners did in every mining camp, everywhere, every time, threw them out. Sometimes killed them. This is what we need to do, rid ourselves of the agents of corporate and fiscal plunder. What I talk about periodically. We don't do that. These people are bringing in, because it's all a fiction now, bringing in any fantasy they want without any basis. Remember, it's adjunct policy. It's policy aside lawful constraints, be it constitution, be it custom, be it tradition, be it all the things men and women do and have done. It's legal investment to the benefit of the system that is going to use that to take a part for their plunder. And we miss the point. They give us 3 things to choose from, and we make the choice instead of saying, hey, instead of asking a question, hey, show me your warrant to offer those 3 things first. Not question the 3 things, Ask them, how do you have the authority to even make the offer which deprives me of what I have right of? The instruments of electronics and those that control the switches are controlling our wires. The fix is in. You walk right into that. In fact, you see it in all the contracts when you try to get involved. Now, I don't know where this comes from. We have a domain, and then all of a sudden the domain is the property of the registrar? Are you kidding me? But that's what they're doing to us. In fact, I've got a problem with the registrar right now. I've got to figure out whether or not I sue them. And the ICANN. Because they take your intellectual property under their rules that they don't give you any chance to even look at or continue to agree, and they apply upon you their possession of your intellectual property. And then they keep it from you. And they take money for that. Is the new digital system of the centralized control. It's not actually going to be so centralized as it'll be the people that are made the bureaucrats of centralized control, all subject to this pretext of other higher policy. When you see this electronic personhood stand up, you should actually not just shake your head, you should be very afraid, and I don't mean in the, oh, be fearful. I mean afraid that you are going to miss the opportunity in order to stop it. If they're going to do this, they have to make a chasm between you, your life, your land, your ways, your traditions, and what they want to impose. And as soon as you do that, you're going to find that it has a limited space of application, and the occupation starts to go down because we start realizing, oh, they are an occupying force in the costume of benevolence. Oh, they offer this stuff for free, and in fact, it's just the trap. Silent Weapons for Quiet War. They make a place for you to plug in. YouTube removes influential conservative websites' channel. Censorship comes the rule of the day. Now, we all know this is going on, so all of y'all keep up on it. Keep utilizing these services that we now know are there to control our future, control our voice, control our word. Why? Because they privatized it. They work with the government. Clint Richardson's Corporation Nation. These legal entities exist by virtue of the government that oppresses you. You don't think that they're going to be the voice of the oppressor? They're the action arm of the oppressor. YouTube channel of YouTube channel of influential conservative politics and law website Legal Insurrection has been removed by the video sharing service citing copyright infringement claims. Please don't confuse me with talking about politics or that it's a conservative website or anything. Understand, or even that they speak of the law, understand that there's a public-private partnership going on of censorship, and they will do whatever they apparently will do whatever they want. Now, I'm not going to analyze this. I did some things. Some ideas come to me when I read these things. I got to be careful that I get lost in some of it and how to work out the problem. You can read it. You can see it. But in fact, these technocrats working the centralized places that everybody show up to are in the seat of construction, in the seat of decision, in the seat of conveyance of information, and the education of your place in that digital circuit you've placed yourself in. And so we can utilize them, but we better understand what's happening. We can make an issue of this, and I hope they do. Understand, if it is part of the government, you can show the ties. There's going to be a limit to this digital interweb centralized control. It's not really centralized control, but there is a central control. It happens to be the fictions that are running these systems, and their concurrence with state, federal policies, international policies, actually. That I put a link to that story. I put a link to the website. Don't know anything about it. I don't even read it. You can read. You can do. All this information is available. I'm just saying, YouTube is a technocrat condition that's showing you that censorship is here. Now, they may back off, but what they've done is they've shown you they can do it, and then they've gauged the sentiment of the people. And as long as you stay crickets, they'll move further. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I really don't want to look at it that deep. I don't have the time to look at it that deep. These are evidences of what's going on. And so here we have legal insurrection was just A video account for a website called Legal Insurrection was just pulled. And I sent out a tweet to the tweeter of this story, Hans Grun, and thank you for what you do, Grun. Hans putting all that out and letting people see stuff. This is where I pull some of what I get my ideas. I answered him, and I said, apparently, Hans Grun, the insurrection won't be televised either. We were told way back when, not so way back when, actually, the revolution won't be televised. Apparently, the insurrection won't be televised either, folks. To kind of show you there's really no limit to this. This is going to continue. Now, the Internet of Things or the automatons have personhood. Again, I wasn't so rash to tell you that animals, or the baboons, the monkeys, are given rights. This is because you're living in legal fiction land. Do not limit the capacity of that to look insane. And don't rationalize it. You have to stop it in its tracks. The digital world is controlled. It's beyond, I keep telling you it's beyond us. Those of us here that listen to me, most likely we all know that. We put up with it. We make our decisions. Like I've told you, I don't use Skype. It becomes a big it's been a big impediment. I still don't use Skype. We use Raka2. Finding out that they dropped the encryption on that, folks. I'm now in the market for a better one. See, this is what they do. They get you in, and then they drop certain things and then made vulnerable. Big one that everyone's been knowing about, and I heard this come up, and the reason why I was even talking about this is I've heard some people actually talk to me. They're getting emails. The recent emails are a trap. If it's a WhatsApp email, do not click the link. It's a scam. It's a hack. But now comes up WhatsApp vulnerability allows snooping on encrypted messages. So all y'all that were into WhatsApp, like Skype, not that the hacking, but they got the encryption so that they can listen to everything you do and chat and all that, all in the government. Why I told you why Microsoft paid so much money at the time. Everyone was astonished. Why would they pay so much money? Because they were told to go pay for it so they can get at the communication that got popular. The government can do that. All in face of them saying they're protecting the user's rights. They're not. They're giving it right in the user's terms. They say they're giving the stuff to third parties. WhatsApp vulnerability now, this is something out in the programming, allows snooping on encrypted messages. Now, there was a little debate. WhatsApp certainly coming out and said it's not a back door. WhatsApp vulnerability was determined to be a back door. They come out, well, it's not a back door. Well, let's just keep it as a vulnerability. The WhatsApp has a major vulnerability. What's up with the WhatsApp backdoor story feature or bug? Two more stories for you. If you don't understand what you're doing with your electronic devices, with these electronic persons, consider this. Your phone is a person, folks. Are you like I'm using this as another. Are you like your phone? From legal perspective, you are. Now, how are you going to make the distinction that you're not your phone? You think that you may chuckle. I'm serious. You're going to have to be able to refute the presumption you're not your phone. You already have to do that, but you don't see that quite yet. So I'll just make it on this story. And that phone has a bunch of vulnerabilities, as I broached to you last week when I figured out what rooting actually is. It's exploiting existing vulnerabilities in your phone, and there's dozens and dozens of them, to be able to give you, under a purported pretext of white hat entry, into your own device to gain control over your own device, to the limit of the firmware, I'm sure, and the software. There's vulnerabilities built into these devices that you cannot protect against, being just common Joe on the street. WhatsApp is another vulnerability. All these things, I don't see how they're not. And if you continue to move down this trail, this technocracy, all your Internet of Things devices on your walls, the Echo is going to be personhood. It's going to be required to divulge its guts digitally, and you will be paying a premium of tax for the Social Security of that service and benefit to the government. Does that sound sci-fi, folks? It's here. You just heard the other story. And I hear crickets. these so-called cloud, these are just cloud, the cloud. It's just a bunch of private servers. It's a private company that owns servers. It's like you having a server that you allow other people to address, that you have put certain programs on that they can use. It's remote access. Cloudflare finally able to reveal FBI gag order that Congress told Cloudflare couldn't possibly exist. Cloudflare is you see it all over the place. It's a place where you upload your stuff and it's in storage up there and you can download. I think we have an account that uses a couple of accounts through the extensions. It'd be like, I don't know if Spreaker does or not, but you go to Cloudflare. I know that because I have a script blocker and I have to give it special permission. Otherwise I don't get to see anything. And so it was sitting underneath an FBI gag order since 2013 and couldn't tell anybody. And this is a very interesting story on the balancing that's trying to go on. And that won't happen if you don't learn how to fight it. Another one of the FBI's thousands of national security letters, or NSLs here, has been made public. Along with its recipient Cloudflare's latest transparency report, its seventh to date, contains a bonus. A 2013 NSL, or National Security Letter, the FBI felt no longer needed to be kept secret. I think this story is important to read. What are these things? How are you going to be vulnerable to these things that are not in your possession even, let alone the ones that are in your possession now? We finally get to peer into things that are supposed to be secret, if you will, under these national security letters. In other words, you get one, you can't even, another story goes on, they weren't even able to discuss with the government congressman's aide that what the congressman was thinking through the aide and what the aide thought could not happen was. They couldn't, at least they felt, they couldn't even tell the aide that what the legislator intended was not being followed in order to make new legislation to stop it, which really should happen now. This is how insidious this pretext of terrorism, this pretext of national security, which is a fraud, is. They have figured out how to undermine our lives completely. This is an insight with the FBI NSL letter on what's going on there, what they're after, what the problems that come up, problems that, the collateral damage, the unintended consequences, which are exploited by these people in these positions in the intelligence community. And I keep forgetting to say it. I'll say it right now, off the point a little bit. I always wondered what this product that they used to give us that said Intel inside was. Now with all this intelligence agency stuff, I now realize what they've been telling us. What they mean when they say you have Intel inside. Somebody who is purported to be one of these whistleblowers, whom I came out in the first week and have said his name was, because of his name we should actually be saying Snowjob, is Snowden. And to show you, not only does the government know how to exploit us, and that I have a real problem with us exploiting ourselves as well, and that I don't know who this guy really is, because he really didn't say a whole lot that we didn't know, and I told you that they would give us a lot of information about their infiltration, so we would go to sleep on it. We would just stop paying attention. It just overwhelms you to the point you don't want to deal with it. And it is overwhelming, and yes, I don't want to deal with it. They've done what they were going to set up to do. I'm barely hanging on to try and keep myself as off the radar as possible. It's everywhere. But this guy comes on this world scene, and to the one point I want to give him a lot of credit for going ahead and doing that. As long as it's not a psyop. I can't tell. But to show you that even this guy, for his intelligence, he worked as intelligence, as intelligent as they was thought, the government figured out he was the proper guy to fit in that position, notwithstanding his political views, or his views on people and what the government's limits are. But he's the guy in the job. He decides that it's gone too far. He comes out and he does his thing. And over this time, we've been watching this drama, the Snowden drama. And yesterday he comes out, or day before, and I want to show you how we get this wrong, at least by my interpretation of how things work. Even this guy can't get it. And then I have the proof now that at least 1 million plus more don't get it. What I tell you behind the woodshed all the time to be careful of. Understand what you're dealing with before you agree with something. Qualify it before you get on the bandwagon. Don't be a lemming. Don't suffer the hyperbolic determinism of the lemming's leap. Take some responsibility for your own actions. Don't just get on the cause, which they have us all doing in all these things. These color revolutions come in all colors, folks. They don't have to be a color. There's a cause. World's top human rights groups just delivered over 1 million signatures to Obama. For once, I have no words, was Edward Snowden's comment on Twitter. I have the link. You can just see it all yourself. And then I realized, then it says he has a link. For once, I have no words. Now, I realize he's speaking to the care of 1 million plus people to come with a petition, ostensibly in innocence, to help him. I understand that surface response. But even so, he says he has no words. I responded, I'd have lots of words about this, because the very next thing that he shows is a link, which is to an organization which says pardonsnowden.org. And then there's a picture. And this then at the bottom of the picture, because that's the graphics, my eyes went right to the bottom where the pictures are, because I guess I'm picture-oriented. It says Amnesty International, ACLU, Human Rights Watch, 3 squares. Now, I hope some of you listening to me have already picked up the clue, the secret, the answer already of what I've already said. But let me read the graphic. Got his face on it. He's looking kind of blank into the picture. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The heads of the ACLU, folks, again, so much flashes in my mind. Remember, the ACLU is a bunch of attorneys, bar members, professing to do good. The heads of these are the people in law, supposedly, that know better. The heads of the ACLU, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch appeal to a President Obama, colon. Why colon? Where's this? Anyway, we are confident that Edward Snowden will be remembered as a human rights hero and one of history's most important whistleblowers. A presidential pardon for Snowden would be a brave affirmation of citizens' rights to hold government to account when power is abused. On the right-hand corner at the bottom it says, Pardon Snowden. Have you got the secret, folks, yet? That attorneys are saying, going to the president and saying, pardon Snowden, was an impossibility in my mind right off the top. Why, folks? And I'll give you a link to a simple definition, and I'll read the first parts of it. Pardon, the action of an executive officer of the government that mitigates or sets aside the punishment for a crime. Sets aside the punishment for a crime. The granting of a pardon to a person who has committed a crime, the granting of a pardon to a person who has committed a crime or who has been convicted of a crime is an act of clemency, which forgives the wrongdoer and restores the person's civil rights. Civil rights. At the federal level, the president has the power to grant a pardon, and at the state level, the governor or a pardon board made up of high-ranking state officials may grant it. My response, folks, maybe you picked this up. I just responded this way, and Thank you to Cowboy Tech. He tweeted this out to see this. I would have a lot of words, Cowboy Tech. Now I'm speaking to all you listeners. I'd have a lot of words. Where Snowden says I'm without words. I know what he's saying there. I know the inference. His gratefulness that people came to care where he didn't think maybe there was any care, and that's kind of a lie too. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he doesn't realize the propaganda that he was pushing either. But I would have a lot of words, I say to Cowboy Tech. And why are 1 million plus claiming Snowden is a wrongdoer that a pardon is relevant? Hashtag World on Stupid, spelled STOOPID. Did some of you get the clue, folks, that we are just not getting this in the world? We don't get the fact of what we're doing, and we're led by the attorneys to do the incorrect thing for and to bring a subject to an improper, a wholly heinous action. I'm talking about civil rights. For the attorneys to petition Obama, they got the right guy. But the right guy's power is only over wrongdoers. That in the petition it admits the world, you got 1 million witnesses to Snowden being a wrongdoer. Whatever my opinion of it is, if I have one, about what this whole thing is, you have 1 million people saying he's a wrongdoer because the remedy they're asking for is a pardon, the definition of it which only pertains to wrongdoers. He's merely accused, folks. Have you got this? And we don't even know if it's accused under probable cause. A lot of fake news on this, too. That the attorneys bring everybody subject to civil rights, the extortion of every kind against us, human rights, the diminishment of men and women in the world underneath UN control, and agreeing he's a wrongdoer that suffered due process already. Have you got all the failure here, folks? I'm stupefied that 1 million plus people and all the attorneys of the ACLU and the Amnesty International, which works as an NGO to defeat us at every turn, and all these other people would come out as a petition, and 1 million people would agree to witness that Snowden was a wrongdoer, blew me away. And I heard worse than crickets. I heard a bunch of false accusers here, folks. We don't even know what we're doing. We're completely emotion-driven. I agree that the gentleman is presumed innocent, so notwithstanding what I feel is going on, let's hear the probable cause-based complaint. If he's figured out a way to avoid at this point that, we still haven't seen the complaint. That you come out and say he's a wrongdoer by the very point of asking for the pardon is an astonishment to be a witness of ignorance, of a stupendous stupidity. And this is what we do all the time. And the attorneys lead us on, and we don't say, whoa, hold it. He's not a wrongdoer. The pardon isn't even viable. And here, look at the unqualified one. For as much as I think he's such a despicable character, he'll be blamed for not pardoning Snowden for the purposes of the feeling. And he will be right to not pardon Snowden because pardon's not a wrongdoer yet. At least under the law. Doesn't have a criminal punishment. Now, he may be self-inflicted punishment being exiled to some place, but this is totally different. Do you understand how our ignorance of our own, even our own simple language, is just so replete? I'm getting all speechless here. I can't tell you how deep this affected me. It's like my shoulders drop, my head drops. I just shake my head. Face palm? People don't even realize what they're doing. Do you realize that I retweeted that? And of all the people that responded to Snowden and Snowden himself, I have not received a correction, a clarification. I haven't received an insult, nothing that exposes that the pardon is not relevant to a non-wrongdoer. That everyone believed that a petition to Obama would help Snowden. If that isn't division and wrong action and a waste of time evidence, I don't know what more to point out to everybody. And I got real excited here, I know. It just drives me nuts to watch us do all the wrong things at the right times, and we think we're doing good. I don't know what Snowden's real answer is. It's certainly not asking the government, who's already professed to go after him and will do so without a proper allegation. Why are you even asking that question of that criminal? It's the same question I hear people going to traffic court and asking the judge a question about the charges, or what doesn't the prosecutor have to give this and did that, and about jurisdiction. No, you don't ask a question. You use a remedy, shifting the burden and the persuasion in the proper way. You don't talk about the pardon already. Okay, I guess I said enough. I don't know. I just see things a different way, folks. To me, it's more clarifying, too. I get to it so quickly. I mean, this was a light bulb. It just like a flash in my eyes. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. 1 million people signing a petition to pardon Snowden was impossible. Impossible. And now we're going to blame all those people who blame Obama for not pardoning something he can't do. Positive enough here, folks? Quiet, making you think? I don't know. I hope so. I want us to think better. I want markonthebeast at yahoo.com. Markonthebeast at yahoo.com. If I've got this messed up, I need to know, because 1 million plus people didn't send a Twitter back to me to say you messed up. And I mean on proper terms, not just because they emotionally respond that somehow they think that I might be against Snowden. At the point of the law and the guilt, no. He's deserving of all due process. He deserved a lot better than he's gotten at this point. Truly, a whistleblower shows us the complete destruction of the intention and the law of the same guy they're asking that the whistleblowers to be protected. They're asking for this pardon before it's ready. Wow. We really have a problem in us. If he's innocent until proven guilty, why do you call him put your signature down on a petition to call him a wrongdoer by asking for the pardon? Wow. I mean, if you're having an argument with me right now, you better slow up. I want you to read I'll put a list on what a pardon is. You can read it for yourself. Read for any exception to that limited. They even tell you that the court cases, the courts have said this power is very limited over limited subject matter. So apply the constraint, and you'll see more better when you see the words yourself. Engage your brain. Remember, behind the woodshed, it's BYOB. Bring your own brain. And I say put it in a paper bag, because the government's after your brain. They want to control your brain. So you got to put it in a bag, like drunks on the road. You want to put your bottle in a bag. Put your brain in a bag, folks. When you bring it behind the woodshed, then you can uncover it. But don't travel the world with your brain exposed. They want it. Bring your own brain. And I've added Pinky now. Bring your own brain, Pinky. I remember some sort of comedy cartoon or something. I don't know. Is that enough? I have one more tweet. Bird sound. What? Incredible! More than 1 million people from 110 countries wrote to POTUS calling for him to pardon Snowden. Here's what that looks like. And I said, no doubt incredible. Absolutely incredible how stupid people are in action. Talk about mass. The huddled mass of insanity, the mass mob rule. This would be mob rule. And you see a map. Big green spot on the United States as well. Little red spots everywhere else. All over the world. Not getting it. And not conveying that across the same social network. Hey, you're not getting it. And not responding to me, even in vile nature in response, because you're just so, he's become your guru to tell me how wrong I am to go against Snowden. Not a sound, folks. Crickets against the most obvious and glaring error. And agreed to by the attorneys. Folks, if they can get that far wrong, how do you think they're going to treat your cases? They could care less. They care less. They want to tell you how to do it wrong, so you continue to do it wrong. And then you won't tune in a mass to listen to how I'm trying to suggest to you we do it better. And we do it better. We don't come up with these insanities that I see. The deception that goes out and continuing despite evidence to the contrary. Evidence to the contrary. We live in a continual court case in our life anymore. We're in that civil war. Everywhere we go has to be evidenced. Make the records, folks. The records are made. Are we listening to them? Moving on. Globally, right? I mean, the whole world is just stupid. STOOPID. No, I guess that's stoop ID. I guess we can all sit there on our stoop, too, doing nothing. A leaked Kerry audio shows hidden Syria backstory. Fascinating story, fascinating discussion, completely clearly stating that the government of the United States is using everything as its tool. The real story continues to come out. I don't see why we're waiting on the answer here. It appears CNN and New York Times gave the public a sanitized report on the United States Secretary of State John Kerry's meeting with Syrian opposition leaders back in September. Before the election, unlike those two media giants, WikiLeaks released the full unscrubbed audio version of a 35-minute conversation this week. Included was the revelation the White House knew of the growing threat of Islamic State presented in the region, and that it actually hoped progress and lead to regime change in Syria. Won't go on more. I'm running out of time to do so anyway. We know, folks, we actually set this up. We allowed it. We aided and abetted the invasion of a sovereign nation. Whatever I think the politics is there is irrelevant. It's that I'm telling you that mirror is on you. You have an invasion going on by the very same characters that Kerry represents. I pointed out to you over and over and over. So insane is this duality they produce. There was even, I'll throw this in just to get past it. The government through Ash Hat Carter says that Russia did virtually zero in Syria. They actually Russia interfered with the United States. Well, yeah, when you see that what they wanted to do was take down the regime, absolutely that's another admission that Ash Hat Carter is saying that there's no statement is just complete lunacy. Lunacy, buffoonery at the worst, at the easiest. Lunacy, psychopathy, folks, is what's driving America, and that is a reflection on the people. And we can act as the accessory to that crime against us, that the destruction of the fiduciary relationship and the breach and the use of a pretext to bring on national security necessity is all a crime against us that we have to stand up against. It's right there for us from their own words, their admission and confession that this is going on. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope something I said will get you involved to step up for ourselves, take responsibility. I don't know what else to do. Thank you, Grimner, for all you do on reallibertymedia.com and the broadcaster page and the archives and all that. And folks, donate. YouTube account. We need, I think, only 5 or 6 more, folks. Be the 100th. Put it in there. Don't wait till the 100th, but put it in there. Tell us who the 100th is. We get that new thing. It's broken along. Thank you for the 3 or 4 that actually jumped in. UCY.TV. Thank you, Jules. We appreciate your podcast, your broadcast, and the late broadcast on Thursday. And freedomsnetwork.com, social network. Grammy Mary, thank you for the Spreaker. And we got tons of places to listen to the broadcast. Send it out, folks. I'll be here next week. Tech Diffs and Nature Willing.
Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
Well, that's what opening up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son,
Just open a whole case of whoop-ass.
This is Ozzy Skateboard.